All right, everybody. All right. We are live. We are live. All right. Sorry for the extreme delays today. We had two things back to back. Oh, brother, this guy's late. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Two things basically happened back to back. First, already had technology issues, so there was some issue with the setup here to begin with. So, and I'm sending this to my editor at the same time. Issue with the setup here to begin with. Either the mic wasn't working or the camera wasn't working, or both. And then my girlfriend came back from work sick as fuck with the flu. So then I had to basically do the additional things, which was taking the dogs, getting the groceries, etc. So then did that, and then came back, and then still had to deal with the tech issues. So we got a few things basically back to back. But it's okay now. It's okay now. I am allowed to change the time if there are emergencies involved. If there are emergencies involved, it's all okay. Reason being, that's how a normal workplace would function. You are allowed to take time off if an emergency occurs. So I feel like that's warranted. Same as me taking a sick day, but I just bumped it back an hour. I think that's okay. Oh my god, am I going to send this shit? All right. Okay, please send. There we go. Okay. This shit is sending. All right. 1 hour and 15 minutes? Yeah. Well, I was thinking that we would have to cancel the whole stream, for the record. So, to me, it's a miracle that everything worked out the way it did. I was in turbo mode. I was in absolute turbo mode. Okay. Henchman976 says, not without your bosses bitching at you, though, lol. Yeah, that's fair. Well, you guys do that regardless. I feel like I don't need to be late for that to happen. I feel like that just happens regardless. Tiptier Trevisa says, emergency, you have like 5 separate emergencies, come on. Well, because it's 2 at the same time. There was already the tech issue, and I was like, okay, that might make it late. And then there's an illness issue. So then that's just me being a good partner, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Would it have been better if I just said it's one emergency? Because I could have just said it's the tech thing, and then we leave it at that. Is it worse if I list 2 things? We are owed points for this? No. Tiptier Trevisus is more you're self-employed, though. Yes. And I gave myself that additional time, if that makes sense. All right, continuing on. Emergencies, I'm allowed to. I'm allowed to if there's a... Because otherwise, like, what happens? Like, if I'm like, what if I got hit by a car or something like that? If I got hit by a car, then... then of course I get to move the stream back, right? And the time that my laptop didn't work recently, I got to move the stream back, right? So those are agreed upon moments, right? If it's an emergency, it's fair. Okay, hold on. Do we need proof? Do I need to show text message proof? I want to show a bunch of text messages. Hold on. I don't want to show text messages. That's probably not correct. Can I show just this? I'm just showing this. I don't know if people can see it. I feel like I should be allowed to do this without having to... Yeah, what if I get abducted? Okay, it doesn't matter. I don't need to show text messages. All right. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay. Let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick, just because the stream did actually start on time. Technically. Let's get stream likes up to 50. Also, the, sorry, address on my way leaked. If you got hit by a car, you better take your laptop with you to the hospital, lol. What were we doing? Yeah, today's stream idea is a light one, because here's the thing. It is genuinely hard to come up with stream ideas when we're in the middle of some really cool stuff happening, because I don't want to, like, there's so many stream topics that I want to cover from God Valley, but I need to save them all till after God Valley ends so that we can go through them all, fairly. So I wanted to do something a little bit different, which is there's been a lot of discussion about how well, how good, what do we kind of want as a community for One Piece's final villain to be, right? And then how well is Oda going to pull off whatever villain route that he ends up going down? Because either it's Blackbeard or it's Emu. I'm personally in the camp of the more I see of Emu, the more I feel like he's maybe not going to be the final villain Luffy defeats. The more I feel like it's going to be something with... I feel like Blackbeard killing... I'm leaning more right now towards, in this moment, towards Blackbeard killing Emu, taking his abilities. I'm leaning towards that. Because sometimes it's hard to explain. Sometimes I don't even want Luffy to be the one to beat the bad guy. It's rare though. But this one feels like a storyline where there's just so many other characters that may really want to defeat Emu, like a Blackbeard obviously, like a dragon. The thing is that Oda ultimately always makes it so that Luffy's the one that defeats the villain. No matter how little connection, no matter how little Luffy even gives a shit. Like, that's the thing, because you go back through the story, it's like, oh my god, Wiper and NL, like, that's like real hate. That's like 100 years of, like, centuries and centuries of hate. Wiper's the one carrying the will of the Chandran people. Luffy is literally just a tourist, and that's actually pointed out many times throughout the arc. What are you guys even doing here? You don't know anything about what's going on. Get the fuck out of our land, yada yada. But ultimately, it's like, well, Luffy just beats up NL. Why? Because NL is fucking there, and he's kind of in the way, right? Doflamingo. This is a big one. A lot of people actually I think there's still, to this day, like a faction of people who feel like Law should have been the one to defeat Doflamingo in Dressrosa. There's a faction of people, because, like, it's almost funny when, it is funny when they're all traveling up the plateaus, or sorry, the sunflower, the hills, right? And they're all riding the horse together, and Kyros is like, my hate for Doflamingo goes back like 10 years, and Law's like, well, my hate goes back like 15 years, and Luffy's like, well, mine goes back 30 years, and they're like, that's bullshit, you just found out about Doflamingo, you just started disliking him this morning, right? But then Luffy's the one who gets to beat Doflamingo. So I think Emu is a rare case where I actually don't feel like... I feel like there's other characters I would love to see defeat Emu, and then Luffy defeating Blackbeard, I would personally prefer to see that. I still think, just based on past patterns, how Oda's written the entire story, I'm like, damn, I feel like it's more likely than not that Luffy's the one that defeats Emu. Chino Alabachi says, I like Luffy being the big bad. I do generally prefer that. I think that's one of my favorite things about One Piece even, is that, like, when I really dislike a character, like a villain, I can count on Luffy to like fuck him up later. So it's not like it's a negative aspect of One Piece. I think it just, you know what, it's because we're missing Elbaf. So once we see Luffy in Elbaf get to confront Emu a bit, I think maybe then I'll feel differently. It's possible, but I don't think I've ever in an arc personally felt like I would rather somebody else defeat the villain than Luffy. I understand why Law fans felt like that in Dressrosa, but I didn't like Law, as you may know if you follow this channel. So for me, it was the other way. I actually didn't even like the fact that it started out as a team-up, and then Luffy defeated Doflamingo. I was like, this is bullshit. Luffy should be the only person standing in front of Doflamingo, because that's how the entire fucking story works, right? I didn't need to see Luffy and fucking Pell team up to fight Crocodile, or Luffy and, like, I don't know, whoever team up to fight Lucci. I just like seeing Luffy be the one to defeat the bad guy. So generally, that's my personal feelings. But this one, it's tricky because it's just like, I don't know. We haven't gotten to that point in the story yet. But with Emu, I don't know if Emu's got what it takes to be like an all-time great anime antagonist. I think he could be a solidly serviceable one, whereas Blackbeard, I think, could be an amazing final antagonist. Carnage, thanks for the 2. Official implies Whitebeard felt betrayed by Brock's sad. Yeah, that's really weird. I'm just like, Do they not see that he's not in his usual state of mind or something like that? I guess they don't, but I don't know. It's odd. Henchme976, thanks for the 2. Daddy Connor for true final villain, and he wins. And he wins. Man, that's real Marine bootlicking right there. Let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick. Okay, so the reason I did this stream is because I thought it might be a fun idea, not just to do like who would be a better villain, Blackbeard or Emu, but to kind of look back through completed anime and manga storylines and kind of just discuss what are some of the greatest ones that we've ever had, you know? What are some anime and manga final antagonists that feel worthy of that? Because, like, I think the classic example that people bring up is, like, a terrible, terrible version of this is Kaguya, right? I think Kaguya kind of became the poster child of how to pick the worst final antagonist possible, which is a damn shame because Naruto was on, at least in terms of final antagonist, it was on a good track with Madara being the pick, right? Like, everything, I think nobody would have complained if Madara Uchiha was the final antagonist, and it's kind of just like he had something really good going with Madara. I think people really, really like that. And then he not only destroyed that, he replaced it with something that everybody hated, which is just a really weird choice. I would love one day for Kishimoto to talk about that in an interview or something like that. Ryan Dufour, thanks for the 5. If Brooks' music takes Gunko out of Dami Reversi, could Bink's Sake have been used by Joy Boy as Dami Reversi counter? That's an interesting idea, maybe. Maybe some people have talked about how down the line, I think somebody talked about that last stream, or maybe it was last stream, I want to say, or I've seen it somewhere. My memory's failing me right now. But the idea that, like, the drums of liberation or something, like Luffy's Nika heartbeat might work to un-Dami Reversi people in the final battle. That could be a thing. But Dami Reversi is a big problem. It's a very big problem. Whatever drawback it has, it's something that's yet to be revealed to us, because at the moment it does not seem to have a drawback. Let's get stream likes up to 50 real quick. The hell? I gotta reload this shit. Yeah, Carnage, thanks for the 2. Emu's childish, gives off Orochi/Spandam vibes. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be like pure Orochi/Spandam type stuff, because Emu does seem to be like a strong Conqueror's Haki user as well, based on Emu's debut on Elbaf. But people had talked about this in like the Japanese translations early on, when Emu was first speaking in some of the throne room scenes. Emu apparently speaks in a childish manner, right? I don't know if I love that for Final Villain. Basim El Madawi, thanks for the 10. I would like it if we could see the victims of Emu directly request help from Luffy. I think the citizens of the Ancient Kingdom were sent forward in time, and that way there can be justice for them. Hashtag mute piece. Okay, you're not forgetting the mute piece. So it's funny you brought up the forward in time thing, because I have a really big theory that that involves that, and that ties in Toki as well as the One Piece and stuff like that. But I think the fact that things can be sent forward in time is a major, major part of the story that Oda came up with from the beginning. So I have a lot of thoughts on that. I don't want to say anything further. I don't know about the whole civilization of the Ancient Kingdom being sent forward in time, but I could definitely imagine. I feel like all I'll say is I think that there may be at least 1 to 2 characters that are sent forward in time from the Ancient Kingdom. Not like characters that'll win the war for them, but I think that is something that we will see. I think Oda set things up in a certain way. And Toki is still a huge, huge missing plot thread. Let's get the stream likes up to 50 real quick. Yeah, let me try find it. Okay, hold on. Yeah, let me do this stuff in the meantime. Let me pull this shit up for you guys. So, yeah, just thought it'd be fun to talk about some of the great anime antagonists of past series. I think that could be a lot of fun. And specifically, I want to look at final antagonists. I'm not just looking at like, okay, what are some great anime villains? I'm looking at what are characters because the ending is very important for me in most stories. So I'm trying to see like what are examples of anime villains that like, or anime and manga that did it right with their final concluding villain. I think that's something important to look at because that's really what One Piece will be judged against at the end of the day. Let's see. Source says, who do you think is the most evil character in One Piece so far? Like most evil is really hard to gauge because it's like, do you gauge it by actions, like just pure number of people killed, or do you judge it by character? Because I think those are two slightly different things. Because some characters just have the means to commit more murder than other characters. So I mean, if we were to go by One Piece, right? I would say I think I judge evil in the One Piece context by basically being like, not just lack of empathy, right? But one, I think severe lack of empathy, but also like, and severe lack of value for human life, but also almost desire to cause harm and suffering, and to kill, cause desire and suffering, and to relish in that, and maybe even concocting new ways to really, really cause pain and suffering, and like relishing in that. So like, for example, Orochi actually ranks pretty damn high for me in that sense, in that Orochi not just like destroying the whole nation of Wano, enslaving all those people, killing so many people, yada yada. Orochi actually like he tried to find new ways to make people suffer, in that he was like, well, the people seem really sad because of all the stuff I'm doing, and I don't like that, so I'm going to make them eat fruits that will force them to smile and take away their ability to express their negative emotions, right? So I think Orochi is actually one of the most evil ones. If we want to get into some psychological aspects of things, I think you could, depending on your philosophies, you could argue that the most evil would be somebody that is like evil without even having reason to be like that, right? So like, let's pretend, just for devil's advocate, you could be like, yeah, Orochi so terrible, Doflamingo so terrible, but you know what, like they also had really sad backstories in childhoods, right? So then you could go, okay, well, then what about someone like Saturn? He grew up really privileged, and you could argue, well, then that's just celestial dragons grow up really privileged, so they don't have the same sort of framework as a normal person. So I feel like you might have to search for someone like just maybe someone like Enel could be a good pick. We don't know enough about Enel's backstory to say for sure. But Enel, as far as we know, was just a normal person, right? So as far as we, like, from our knowledge, he didn't grow up super privileged or anything like that, but he also didn't grow up super downtrodden or made to suffer. We don't know much about him, right? So Enel kind of just showed up. He kind of just rolled up as like a normal dude who attained godlike powers and then really, really enjoyed making people suffer. So I think maybe Enel. Amartya Sinha says Caesar clown. Caesar's pretty bad. Caesar's just been made to be so comical over time that it's like, I don't view him in the same light. Tushar Pathak says backstories don't matter when deciding evil. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I just, like, I'm not saying like your backstory excuses your actions. I'm not a Boa Hancock fan, you know? But I do feel like when trying to judge someone's like innate level of evil, like let's say that's just like to some degree just innately without any excuses, how much do you enjoy like causing other humans to suffer? And that's like that's an angle that you can kind of go down. Like, judging evil in general is a complicated question. So I'm like, well, with Doflamingo, maybe if he'd grown up a little bit different. Or like a lot of these characters, it's like, well, maybe if they grew up a little different. Maybe if Orochi didn't grow up that way, Doflamingo didn't grow up that way. I think Spandam is pretty up there, right? Because Spandam, as far as we know, I mean, he grew up kind of privileged. but not like Celestial Dragon privileged. He acts like that shit though, even though he wasn't one. Azure, thanks a lot. Morge, do you think Harold will come to God Valley? I'm beginning to lose hope. Oh, Fatingo, I missed your message. Give me a second. Yeah. I would like to think so, because I just cannot. I cannot support that dude if if there's no. I just can't support that guy. If there's no sort of, if he doesn't come through for Rox, because Rox is literally his final words, his conscious words. I pointed this out last stream. His final conscious words were basically like telling Emu to lay off of Rox. And it's just like, man, Rox doesn't even have that energy for you, man. Like, Rox tried to kill you. Let's see. You know what? Let's do this real quick, because you just reminded me. It's been a little bit since we've done this. So, no, before Elbath Arc. Okay. Just characters. Fatingo, I'll get you in a second. So, how to honor. Okay, Rox is easily number one. Harold has dropped a lot. Man, it's been a while since I've done this ranking. Harold has dropped a lot. Right now, I got Harold. Who the fuck are these guys? Who are these characters at this point? It's been so long. Okay, let's put Harold. I'm going to put Harold above Roto, but below the Walrus guy. Okay, we got some other characters to put in here. Captain John, Wang Zi. I guess we got Ganzui in there. Right, so Captain John. How much do I like Captain John? I think Captain John's a pretty cool character. I like Captain John better than Harold. Wang Zi. Don't like Wang Zi. Kind of an asshole. Let's go ahead and put Wang Zi towards the end. Not worse than... worse than Estrid, though? Wang Zi, I don't know. Estrid's got a good design, so let's say that carries a little bit. Ganzui. Got almost nothing to say about Ganzui. Why are we... Okay, hold on. Tritoma. Here, let's put Ganzui here. Nah, let's put Ganzui here. Nah, let's put... Why do Ronya... So I guess I just was irritated by Ronya. Okay, Ronya there. Let's say Ganzui here. Then who else do we have? Do we have any other new characters that are notable? Eris. We got Eris. Eris is a good character. I like her. I'd put Eris... She's got a good heart. I'd put Eris. It's been too long. You know what? This is hard to rank right now because it's been a while since. We have to revisit this later. This is no longer an accurate ranking. We need to circle back to this. But yeah, Harold has fallen in my esteem for sure. Fatingo, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 29 months, man. You wouldn't know, but the final battle / antagonist of Haikyuu is a great example. It may feel different for sports, but wow, Furidate stuck that landing. I'm not going to doubt Haikyuu anymore. I might go back and watch Haikyuu now. I just finished To Be Hero X, which was really good, but hold on. Let me finish my thought on Haikyuu. I'm not going to doubt Haikyuu anymore after you guys got me to watch the first season, and I thought the first season was really, really good. I really, really liked it. It actually had me cheering at moments. Like, it had me doing audible reactions like, yes! Or, no! like at a few points in the final match of the first season, because I was legitimately invested in it, and it kept you guessing like an actual sports event. So I'm going to stop doubting Haikyuu. I definitely believe that Haikyuu ends really, really well. My only thing with... I think... There's a training arc. That's why I stopped at Haikyuu. They're going to be training for a bit. So I guess I just took a pause, but I might get back into it. This weekend yesterday I finished To Be Hero X. Strongly recommend that. It took a while for me to get into it. I think I had complaints about it early on, but it's a lot of short story. It's so my friend described it to me as it's like the MCU of anime. It's like an anime version of the MCU. And it is really effective. I think you just got to get through some stuff before it starts feeling better. I'd say once the animation permanently changes, the show gets good. or the show's pretty good. The big thing I'll say is this. I think Chinese, so To Be Hero X is a Chinese anime. It's a donghua. My take right now is this. I think that donghua is going to be a new wave soon. I think it's going to be pretty big soon. Outside of just China, I mean. I think donghua is going to be maybe the next big thing in the next, like, 5-10 years. Because I watched this whole anime season, the two best series that I've seen were both donghua. They were both, or I guess I really like Solo Leveling. Yeah, I guess the Solo Leveling is a manhwa or Korean, right? So that's interesting that a lot of but it was made by a Japanese studio, right? So yeah. But at least in terms of animation, like, so let's say aside from Solo Leveling, my favorite anime this year were both donghua because the animation quality that they're able to produce is something else. I think it's just going under the radar right now because they're not Japanese, and like, we've built a whole culture around like focusing on like, okay, what's the next series that's gonna get their manga adapted in an anime, and like, let's watch that. Like this season there was like Gachikuda and stuff like that, right? Or obviously the My Hero new season's coming out, right? But and donghua doesn't have that sort of manga to anime pipeline, but the production is just more. There's something very, very polished about the donghua that I've seen that is. It's not even just about the animation quality. There's just a level of polish to the production that's kind of crazy. And I wonder if it's something that, like, because it's China just has the engine to kind of do that sort of production. And as far as I know, they also have like more tight timelines and planning with their release schedules. Just the animation that I've seen from Lord of Mysteries is the best animated show that, like, in terms of animation quality, right? Easily the best animated show. Animation quality, visuals, atmosphere, scene direction, visual artistry, visual music, like audio visual artistry or whatever that I've ever seen for an animated show, right? To Be Hero X, also Chinese donghua, right up there with it. Phenomenal animation, just consistently, really, really, really consistent. I do think that might be the new wave coming. I think people just need to catch on. And then there's a lot of Chinese donghua there's a lot of Chinese animation that you can only find clips of on YouTube, like Fog Hill of the Five Elements and stuff, and that stuff's mind-blowing as well. I'd say the one area that I think donghua is maybe lacking a little bit. I think it's not lacking, but I think that I prefer Japan's emotional storytelling a little bit better. I think I prefer its emotional storytelling a little bit better. I think there's something that needs to be caught up to there. Anyway, that's like a long sort of a tangent, but it was extra thoughts I just wanted to get off because that's like two, like, after finishing 2 Chinese animated series back to back, I'm like, fuck, this might be the next big thing once people start opening up to it a little bit more. I think anime might actually have a hard time competing down the line. Because I think it sets a very high bar just in production to beat. I guess it helps that anime is becoming more global now, so now it's hitting a bigger audience. But like, China's just got that big ass built-in audience that will always like. So just the economy behind it is probably pretty crazy, in terms of what it can produce, because it'll always have like a huge audience. TDA says people said the same thing about manhwa, but nothing happened. I think that's different because because you're saying like manhwa versus manga. Yeah, I mean that's possible. I mean, but Solo Level, I think really it's a like it feeds into itself because manga in general, they really become like globally popular because they're anime, right? And so the first time you have a manhwa like Solo Leveling that gets a good anime, it actually it's the other way around, right? Doesn't that kind of prove it? The first time that you had a manhwa that got a good anime, it became literally the most popular anime in the world, like the most viewed anime on Crunchyroll, right? Like it broke all the records of Japanese, like it broke all the records of anime based off of manga right away. So if anything, that it's the other way around, right? The moment a manhwa got its first good anime adaptation, it basically beat out all the anime, like all the Japanese stories that were Japanese manga based anime, right? So I think that's not to say it's better. I don't think Soul Leveling is like better than One Piece. I'm just saying that like I don't think that's a good example. I think that Dongwa probably just needs a little bit of time to catch on. And then after that, I think like Japan will have some steep animation in terms of that industry, or competition in terms of that industry. Yeah, that's the thing. Manhwa doesn't get South Korean animated adaptations; it gets Japanese anime. So it's hard to really compare. Whereas China, it's all in-house, right? Um, Continuing on. Um, Tuna sub. Oh, you got. Thanks for the 5, but I'm seeing like a spoiler from you from Gurren Lagann. So I think we're gonna have to find a way to do this in a non-spoilery way. So I'm just gonna do things that are popular, either things that are popular. Okay, Gurren Lagann. I think should be on limits because like it should be fair game because it's been out for so long. But I don't want to spoil myself, so I kind of gotta. You said maybe Johan, but I don't know if he counts because he's kind of the only villain in Monster. Okay. That's not a spoiler because that's established in the first like the start of the story. Carnage, thanks for the 5. I'm gonna only include things that I've read or watched, so it's gonna be a little bit tight. Carnage, thanks for the 5. Rocks bet on the wrong horse and Harold should have teamed up with Roger instead. Could have taken down Emu if they worked together. Maybe no, I agree. I agree with that sentiment, but the thing is, like Roger had no sort of. I think we're gonna see like a character change from Roger after all this. But Roger, prior to God Valley, had no sort of greater ambitions or goals. Like it's hard to pull him into his side to do that stuff when Roger's out doing his own agenda. Like he just doesn't seem to have any concept of like trying to do something bigger than himself. And I don't think he even has a concept of like, why would I need to go fight some guy I don't even know, Emu, that runs the Celestial Dragons? Like, Roger's life has been solid so far, you know? I think it's only after this that Roger's eyes are opened. Isaac St. Charles, thanks a lot. If all named characters of God Valley are strongest man on sea, Bagard included, BTW, we're getting Garling, Harold, Zebek, and Queen, and your deadbeat dad tier list. When are we getting... I don't think all named characters at God Valley are the strongest men on the sea. That's not what the phrasing was. The narrator said that all the strongest men on the ocean, or whatever, all the fiercest warriors or toughest warriors or toughest men on the seas were at God Valley, right? So that doesn't mean that everybody at God Valley is one of the toughest men on the seas. It just means that everybody who is one of the toughest men on the seas is at God Valley, right? So it doesn't automatically mean that like fucking Ganzui is stronger than Sengoku or something like that, right? But it does mean that Sengoku doesn't meet the bar of like the other characters, like Rox, Roger, Garp, Whitebeard, etc. The characters that are clearly among those in that category of strongest warriors on the sea. Deadbeat dad tier list. We've actually done a worse dad's tier list and like a best dad's tier list in the past. We could do that again. We could do something like that again because we have some more characters in there. I'm wondering now if Harold is redeemed because I literally cannot imagine Loki defeating Dami Reversied Harold. I cannot imagine that, right? So I wonder if Harold is able to pull himself back at the last moment and like regain control to stop himself from killing Loki just through force of will. Because or maybe through the power of love or something. And then Loki's like, oh my god, my dad really did love me the whole time or something. I don't know. I mean, it's not like Loki doubts Harold loves him. I think he just doesn't get time with his father. Or Loki probably does doubt that Harold loves him. But yeah, maybe that's the thing. Loki realizes that his father loves him as he's able to fight back at the end. But then that would raise the question, why wasn't Rox able to fight back for Eris and Blackbeard? You know? Yeah, One Piece has... infinite deadbeat dads. Okay. Let me try and pull up this tier list. Alright. Anime manga villains. but we want only final villains. So I should have really done something earlier. Hold on. Let's see what this looks like. Okay. So if we're only doing final villains, then I could kind of assemble this real quick. Yeah, here we go. I don't want to do too many spoilers for people. Don't want to do spoilers. For JoJo's, I would argue the final villain is Poochie. I would argue Poochie counts as like a final villain. You know? Like, doesn't that make sense to some degree? I'm gonna start listing characters, and then you tell me who to leave off, or who doesn't make sense. I've got. Shoot, hold on. You know what? Hold on. Nervin V-Maker, thanks for the 5. Oda loves having Luffy defeat the villain so much that I'd say there's a 20% chance he beats Mihawk. No. Oda also he's listen. I think Oda is very good, generally speaking, at making sure that as many characters as possible get matchups. I think that that's like a thing that he's generally pretty good at. It's one of the things that drew me to One Piece and kept me like really happy with the story for so long. He stopped doing that as much with the Straw Hats as time went on, but you can't say that he didn't. Somewhere along the way in post time skip, he just like started to feel like, okay, I need to build more so side character shit. So like that's why we get to Dressrosa, and you know, Zoro and Frankie are getting like kind of low diff fights, and Robin doesn't even get a fight. But then like all these Coliseum fighters all get a matchup. You know, like you can't say that Oda doesn't think out other character like. When Oda's not going to have a character get to defeat the final villain, like Kyros. Kyros had such a compelling story to fight Doflamingo, but Oda was ultimately like, Kyros, you're not that guy, right? But he still made sure that he gave Kyros a meaningful fight against Diamante, and Kyros himself was kind of happy with that. He's like, he can go home feeling good about himself, pat himself on the back, like, I didn't fight Doflamingo, but I beat Diamante, and that avenged something for me. That was important. And it's just like, Kyros, the plot would have played out the exact same whether or not you defeated Diamante or not. But you know what? It's good for you. Good for you, man. I think it's especially funny that Kyros, like, gets to fight Diamante because, like, Robin's literally right there. So, no exaggeration, nothing would have changed. If Kyros was not there whatsoever, Robin would have just defeated Diamante to save Rebecca. They kind of just let Kyros have that one. Anyway, I digress. I'm going on a big tangent there. But, in general, Oda is trying to make sure everyone's getting their matchups, right? Like, Dressrosa, everybody, fucking the Tentado's got, like, a fight and shit like that, right? You go to Wano, characters that don't even, like, why are we fucking watching Raizo versus Fukurokuju? It's just because, like, Oda was like, he needs a fight. Inuarashi needs a fight. Nekamamushi needs a fight. They can't both fight Jack, so you know what? Nekamamushi, he'll fight Perospero. You realize that Oda literally brought Perospero all the way over, the only Big Mom pirate, to make it all the way over to Onigashima. Like, get knocked down the waterfall twice. They're removed from the story multiple times, and then finally Oda brings Perospero over, and only Perospero, because he's just committed to making sure that Nekamamushi gets a matchup. Perospero is a random as fuck inclusion. It's like a giant battle against Kaido, all the Beast Pirates, and then Big Mom. And then Big Mom's crew? No, not Big Mom's crew. Is it like Big Mom's, like, strongest, like, subordinates? No, none of the Sweet Commanders. It's like, okay, well, who's there? It's like fucking Perospero. Why? It's just because we need Nekamamushi to fight somebody. Okay, and Perospero is vaguely relevant because of Pedro. Okay, so Raizo, Fukurokuju, Perospero, right? Like Inuarashi, right? They're all getting fights for whatever reason. You could argue Kiku versus Kanjuro. Like, everybody gets something for the most part. Even characters that really don't need, like Killer got a fight. Obviously, Kid and Law get their fights. Like, Oda does try to give everybody their matchups, okay? What Oda doesn't like to do is, so like Mihawk will obviously be a Zoro fight, okay? But the thing Oda doesn't like to do is give the main villain to anyone that's not Luffy, and that's natural. You see that plenty of times in anime and manga, but lots of times anime and manga will at least have like arcs that like storylines where the hero doesn't defeat the final bad. Like, how do I explain this? One Piece is one of the only stories I can think of besides Fairy Tail where like literally every single storyline short or long like ends with Luffy beating the bad guy, except for ones where everybody fails, like Marineford, right? So that's one thing that Oda won't do. Like the big bad will always be for Luffy, and then even if it starts out as a team effort, it will ultimately like a Doflamingo or like a Kaido, it will ultimately just be a 1v1 with Luffy for the main part of the fight. Like the main part of the fight will be like Luffy versus Doflamingo, Luffy versus Kaido, the thing that people look up on YouTube, right? He doesn't like to have it come down to a team effort like a Full Metal Alchemist or whatever. That is something I like about One Piece because I actually really dislike fights that are become big team efforts with everybody chipping in. I like seeing a character actually just do it themselves because that's the fucking reason I'm following their story, not so that they have to all hold hands and do it. That's just my personal preference. But with Emu, I'm starting to feel like I might be moving towards an exception just because I'm like, well, Luffy, there's another villain that could be the final villain, which is Blackbeard, right? So I'm like, in that case, I don't think Luffy, does he need both? I don't know if he needs both. That's my angle now, which is like, we've already got, like, you can make Emu the villain for everybody else, and then maybe have Blackbeard be the one that Luffy really needs to defeat that becomes the even bigger problem than Emu. So I don't know. I also worry that some of because another reason I really hope that we get to see a team fight against Emu that isn't just resolved by Luffy is because my feeling now is that some of the matchups for a lot of the characters that they could get are not as, like before I was excited for Dragon versus Garling. I'm not excited for Dragon versus Garling now unless Dragon deals with that without too much trouble. You know? Like some of these, like the Gorosei are fine. Like the Gorosei are solidly strong, but I would hope that some of these characters like, you know, Dragon, Shanks, Mihawk, like they get something a little bit juicier than just taking out a Gorosei or something like that. I don't know. Or like Shamrock. Abraham Jean-Louis, thanks a lot for joining the Supernova. Oh, let me remind everybody. So, what's the main reminder? Okay, let me remind everybody. The Pirate King podcast submissions are open right now. So, for those of you who don't know, the Pirate King podcast, that's my monthly podcast where I record for about an hour and a half, answering every single Pirate King tier members' questions, very, very in depth, in a manner that I usually don't have time to do on stream. And this can cover questions can cover anything, One Piece, other anime, other manga, TV, movies, NBA, whatever. Like, that's where I'm my most free flow and open with general things. So, if you want to join, then join now. If you are a Pirate King member and you have not gotten your submission in, then make sure to get your submission in right now. And yeah. Pirate King podcast submissions are open, and you get access to, obviously, you get to submit your questions for this podcast. You'll get all of that answered, and you get access to all the previous monthly podcasts. I think we're in the 20s now. Alex Tahor, thanks a lot. I have the same sweater on. What the fuck? H&M, right? I wouldn't be surprised because I've had this sweater for... maybe I could check the back or something. I'll check later. I'll let you know. I've had the sweater for years. I would not be surprised if I initially got it from there. Abraham Jean-Louis, thanks for the 5. Okay, I don't want to spoil this. So, you asked nobody look. I'm going to delete your question. Because I don't want to spoil this. Or I'll just hide this. I'll remove this. Okay. I think that... Oh, whoops. I got to unpin this comment too. All right, hold on. I think So there's two ways we can look at it. So with JoJo, so I only want to do final villains, right? So Chainsaw Man is a part 1 and a part 2. It seems like the whole story is going to conclude with part 2, so would we consider part 2 to be with no spoilers, right? No spoilers. Nobody mentioned anything about Chainsaw Man Part 1's final villain because that's something that's important to the story. That's a very important part of the story, right? I think it's a bigger spoiler than other final villains if people don't know. Okay. So with Chainsaw Man, I think you could. So I kind of compare Chainsaw Man to JoJo's here. I'm like, with JoJo's, I consider the final villain of JoJo's to be Poochie. I consider it to be Poochie, and then a new storyline, then JoJo's resets. But kind of view all of part 1 through part 6 is all one narrative, basically, and then you conclude with Poochie. But then by that logic, I'm like, well, with Chainsaw Man, I'd wait through part 2. But that feels different for some reason to me than JoJo's, but I can't explain why. I really can't explain why. Maybe it's not logical. I don't know. Federico Armada says each part has its own final villain. Yeah. Tonga Tapu says I would consider the end of part 1 to be a proper ending. I would too. I would consider it like that's the ending of that, and then the next part is a sequel, right? It's the same way Naruto and Boruto, two different things, right? But for some reason with JoJo's, I consider it to be not like that. Maybe because it's like JoJo's is more recurring. Like part 1 you deal with Dio, then part 3 you're dealing with Dio still. Tiptoe Travisa's Garling demon form better be an eldritch monster, to be honest. Even if it is, it's just like Oda has so much work to do to make up for the off-screen defeat to Rocks. Like, sometimes I wonder, I'm like, does Oda realize how much damage he does to certain characters' reputations with certain moments? Because, like, I don't know if we will ever look at Garling the same way again. Even if he has some crazy Gorosei form, it's kind of like, yeah, but you'd probably still lose low diff to Rocks off screen. Let's get the streamlines up to 100 real quick. I'm not saying Dragon has to be as strong as Rocks or something, but just something exciting, you know. Shacker, thanks for the 5. Blackbeard takes Imu's fruit, then amps his crew with the yokai abilities similar to the Gorosei, giving them all multiple abilities with their fruits. Ooh. Oh, god damn it. Does that mean that we're going to have Zoro versus Shiryu as an actual final battle? I just find that kind of lame. Like, not even just Zoro versus Shiryu, but the entire crew. Like, who's Sanji going to fight then? I can't think, like, the yokai abilities are cool, but it's kind of like, how do I say this? So, like, Venus Juro, right? Let's say you took away Venus Juro's Gorosei form, like his yokai form, right? Venus Juro versus Zoro would still be like an amazing matchup because Venus Juro is clearly also just like a really strong swordsman, right? Advanced, like the Conqueror's Haki Clash and everything like that. Shiryu is not a Conqueror's Haki user. He does not fight like a Conqueror's Haki user. He's just clearly not going to have Conqueror's Haki. There's no fucking, like... So even if you gave him a yokai form, that doesn't make him like a good opponent. And that kind of flies, like that applies to me to most of Blackbeard's crew. I don't know who the fuck's... I still don't know who the fuck Sanji fights. Maybe it's Lafitte. But Lafitte would have to be so shockingly strong. Mr. MMF2, thanks a lot. Yo, more Justy, your definition of Conqueror's Haki is the brainless-ass Baki characters who won't even back off against 9-foot dinosaur-eating cavemen. I mean, how do I say this? You would easily be able to recognize, though, that Yujiro Hanma would have Conqueror's Haki, and it's not a question, right? So, like... I'm not saying that you need to be brainless, but I'm saying that characters that when they take a stand with resolution and resolve. That is constant trait among Conqueror's Haki users. To Pio Treviso, thanks to the 2. I hope my message can be checked if it can be seen. I checked your message. What are you saying? Do you have an earlier message? Oh, your Pirate King podcast message. Your Pirate King podcast message. Yeah, I will watch out for that for sure. For this one, just because I don't know what happened last time. I pulled it up on screen. It just did not show up. It showed you guys on stream itself. Urgert, thanks to two. Too many top tiers need feats, not enough to go around. I don't think that's the case because I think I'm just being a bit more and more open with it now. But I strongly believe that at this point, I firmly believe that the Gorosei are going to be used as enemies for. I don't think the Gorosei are Straw Hat enemies at this point. I think a lot of the I think the Gorosei in general are going to go to characters who we've been waiting on fights for. So I think Dragon Garling. I think Mihawk beating Venus Juro. I think Akainu versus Warrior. I think there's like a lot of things that suggest that those are matchups that could be set up. I think Shanks Shamrock. Like I think a lot of these characters are set to be defeated by non-Straw Hats. And then I think the Straw Hats are basically going to be fighting some version of the Blackbeard Pirates as their main challenge. Carnage, thanks to 2. Want to see Usopp fight Buggy as his final fight. That'd be a good matchup. Tapir Treviso, thanks for the 5. Maybe Blackbeard uses the Yokai amps on the Seraphim like S-Hawk and S-Bird, and those are the final fights. Fights for Blackbeard versus Straw Hat Crew. That would be cool. That would be really fucking crazy. That would be insane. Can you imagine, like, Mihawk, but plus Lunarian abilities and the Devil Fruit and his Dice Fruit, and he's gigantified because all the Seraphim are gigantified, right? So that's already broken. And then yokai abilities. That would be insane. That'd be amazing to see. I think that'd be a crazy matchup. Kurakami Najimi says Shanks versus Shamrock equals repeat of Rocks versus Garling except worse. Yeah, so that's my second part to this, which is I don't think the Gorosei are going to give these characters like the most high difficulty fights. I think those are going to be fights that's why I'm hoping for a big team up against Emu. Because I feel like the Gorosei will be like a solid matchup, but not necessarily like the hardest thing in the world for them. Does that make sense? I feel like that's what I've been leaning towards. And then we see the big fight against Emu. But now I'm worried that we're not going to get to see a big fight against Emu and it's just going to be Luffy mopping up. Yeah. Okay, how about this? Let me do a little list here. Hold on. Let me do a little list of series that it's gonna be focused on series that I know. Okay. Here. Hold on. Final villains from anime. So series that I know. You know what? Here, let me pull up. Let me pull up a little list. Let's see. Okay. So there's a lot of obviously anime. Okay, first question that we have is like, do we count JoJo's parts separately or do we just count? Because JoJo's parts are just for some reason I want to count Chainsaw Man Part 1's final villain as a final villain, but I don't want to count the JoJo's parts villains as final villains. I don't know why. Something makes more sense to me about that. You know why? Here's why I think it makes sense to me. Is I feel like no, I don't think there's a strong argument. Sorry. Count Dragula, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 1 month. Thoughts on the theory that Dami Reversi only works if it's used on you in your homeland? That's an interesting theory, and it would really nerf the ability, and it would make God Valley like a perfect sort of like move by Emu. I think that's a really strong. I think that. How do I say this? I think that's a really good way a reader could come up with to nerf the ability. But at the moment, it's possible. It's only based off of pattern of like we've only seen Emu use Dami Reversi on 2 islands, and it happens to be islands that the characters are from. But it also does make sense because Emu doesn't Dami Reversi anybody else, right? Like he could Dami Reversi, as far as you know, Roger, Garp, and them too. Like why not? I mean, the whole Davy clan he Dami Reversi'd. It's interesting. Justin Holland, thanks for the 2. Where could Akainu versus Luffy fit in all this? Okay, so I've had, for me, a lot of pieces have been clicking slowly more and more for final matchup stuff. But the question mark has always remained like the Emu versus Blackbeard situation. I think most other things remain the same. I think who the Strahds fight, I think who side characters fight, etc. I think all that remains the same. The only thing that changes is, do side characters get an additional fight, team-up fight to take down Emu? I think actually no matter what, there will be some level of team-up to attempt to take down Emu. The question is just, do they succeed? And then Blackbeard swoops in, takes Emu's ability, and Luffy defeats Blackbeard? Or does the team-up fail, then Luffy defeats Emu? And if that's the case, then Luffy's probably already defeated Blackbeard first, right? So, my thought is that I think that I still feel confident Akainu is one of the final matchups for Luffy. I think if initially it's going to be a lot of characters fighting the Gorosei and then Emu, etc., I would not be surprised if simultaneously Luffy and the Strahds are held up fighting the Marines. And that's where Luffy versus Akainu happens. Then after that resolves, everybody else's fight against Emu resolves, then Luffy and Blackbeard can fight. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards in the moment, but it's hard to explain how all the pieces seem like they fit to me. Because to me, all of it does almost fit. There's just like 2 realities. One where it's like Luffy versus Emu is going to be the final fight, and then Luffy versus Blackbeard is going to be the final fight. Jude, thanks a lot. Morge, when are you reading Kagurabachi? I was actually going to read it yesterday, but then I watched To Be Hero X, and I just kind of binged and finished that instead. So maybe next weekend I'll read Kagurabachi. I try to avoid getting into shows and manga during the week, because then I kind of get the urge to binge it, and I become very unproductive. So I might save it for next weekend and read it. Maybe I'll get into it tonight or tomorrow or something. We'll see, but it's unlikely. Ergert, welcome to the Supernova. Thanks a lot for joining. Arian Gakal, thanks for the 2. When do you think Zoro versus Mihawk happens? That's a really fucking difficult question for me, man. That's a really difficult question. I think fun possibility. I think the most dramatic possibility in it. Okay. There's currently 3 routes that I think happening for Zoro versus Mihawk. Okay? 3 routes. I think the most honorable and cool route, if you're a Mihawk fan for this happening, is basically Cross Guild. Like, it's at Laugh Tale or whatever. Cross Guild, it's like a battle royale, so there's red-haired pirates, Blackbeard pirates. Not literal battle royale, but like everybody's there, right? I think it would be really cool if Luffy's taking on Blackbeard and stuff, and then at the same time Cross Guild is there trying to go after the One Piece. And Cross Guild is a Yonko crew, but it would be really cool to show that the Strahds are strong enough to take on a Yonko crew without their captain. So I would love to see Zoro versus Mihawk, Sanji versus Crocodile, if that's the case, okay? So that's cool. I like that. I think after that, if we're going that route, then Luffy fights Emu after this. Luffy defeats Blackbeard, Zoro defeats Mihawk, etc. Then Luffy goes on to defeat Emu after this, okay? So that's a route. Another route that people really, 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 really will not like, and I think there'll be a lot of complaints, even me just mentioning it. Zoro might fight fucking Dami Reversi'd Mihawk. That's in the cards now. It just is, because we've seen that there's no limits to strength to if you get Dami Reversi'd or not. And this could... If you're a hardcore Zoro fan, you might like this route, because it's like, however strong you think Mihawk is, imagine an even more powerful version of that, and then Zoro's fighting that, right? It also merges things a bit better. If Luffy's fighting Emu, then you want Zoro to be fighting basically the strongest subordinate Emu can kind of push onto the table, so maybe that's Mihawk, right? And it makes Zoro versus Mihawk actually, like, it kind of makes the fate of the world kind of depend on it, because it's like, it's not just like Cross Guild ultimately doesn't feel like bad guys, but actually turning Mihawk into a quote unquote bad guy makes Zoro versus Mihawk like more antagonistic, if that's what people are looking for. Yeah, people are saying lol, not happening, solid 0 on that one. That's also what people said about Rocks, and Rocks is ultimately like, if it can, like, let me just put it this way. If it can happen to Rocks, there's genuinely no reason it couldn't happen to Mihawk. That's just a thing that people have to accept. Unless you feel like Oda's too honorable to ever do that to Mihawk. But people felt that way about Rocks, and here we are, right? The last route that people would really, really, really fucking hate is Mihawk is defeated by S-Hawk, and then Zoro fights S-Hawk. But that is also in the realm of possibility. Yeah, I think that I don't want to go down this route too much, because like the only thing I can say is like Zoro versus Mihawk fight at Laugh Tale, Zoro helping defend, stopping Cross Guild from getting the One Piece. That's like the epic way that it can go down. Any other routes are basically things that will deeply upset Mihawk fans. So I don't really know what to Mihawk fans and Zoro fans. So I can't even really talk about it. Yeah, Karabo says S-Hawk, that would be so bad. My take is just this. I no longer use that would be bad as a reasoning to disprove a One Piece theory. Because, like, again, for me, like, I learned that lesson from Wano. For me, like, so much of Wano was like, well, if this just happened like this, that would be bad. If Oda's actually doing this, this is bad. And I trusted a lot that just like, well, I don't think Oda would do that. Turns out, Oda can outright tell us, like, I'm not going to have Luffy defeat Kaido with a big punch, like a big punch, and then he does defeat Kaido with a big punch, right? So it's like, maybe that's not the best example, but there's a lot of times throughout the story at this point from Wano that I'm like, well, this wouldn't happen. I believe that it's going to be something better. I believe that it's going to be something that, like, is actually enjoyable, blah, blah, blah. And then that's not the case, right? So I'm never going to use a reason like, if Mihawk lost to S-Hawk, well, that can't happen because that would just be bad writing. Because then that's like, that's not a reason. That's just you saying you don't like it, you know? That's not a reason to say it's not possible. Does that make sense? It's just, that's not the same as a reason. That's just you saying you don't like it. Anyway. Continuing on. Let's see. So, oh wait, we have to do the JoJo's poll. All right. Do we? Okay. JoJo's part villain as a final villain. I think I'm leaning towards no. Zaid Kadun, thanks for the 5. You carried 2025 with your content. S++ tier content creator, equivalent to Zebek in the One Piece verse. Thank you very, very, very much, man. That is a really nice thing to say. I'm happy that you enjoyed the content. I'm happy you enjoyed the videos. I appreciate that a lot. So looks like people are leaning yes. Probably ended that poll a little bit too early. I don't know if I agree. You know what? Another reason I don't like that is because then we're gonna have like, what, 6, 7 JoJo's villains on this, and that's just, it's what, Dio. I don't even know if I can say part 8. It might be a spoiler. Dio, Cars, uh, Kira, Diavolo, Pucci, Valentine, Turu. Ozai and Pokemon villains, please. You know what? I'm gonna say this. I'm not including JoJo's Part 1, and I'm not including Chainsaw Man Part 1. Reason being, here's my simple reason. I'm not gonna include them because I think the fundamental reason that I think it's hard to get a final villain right is because it's at the end of a long period of storytelling. So that final villain has to satisfy a lengthy amount of story setup, like story arcs, story, etc. Right? When you do part villains, like part 1, part 2, part 3, to me that feels like easier because it's the same as writing a story arc, right? So it's like One Piece has a great villain like Doflamingo or something like that, or like Bleach has a great villain, Aizen, right? Like, it's easier to write a great villain for an individual story arc rather than for like an extended story. Does that make sense? That's what I'm really trying to get to here, because it's fundamentally different. Because when you're concluding a really long story, does that final villain feel satisfying? That's like a very hard question to answer. Like, with Naruto, it's like you can write arc after arc with good villains because you've planned the arc around it. Like Pain, great villain, right? Orochimaru, great villain, right? The question is like, can you conclude a larger story with a phenomenal villain? And that's where it gets hard. Because with JoJo's, I just feel like it's cheating almost, because it's like, yeah, a lot of these are really good villains, but like that's because it's a villain that's planned for an individual story arc, essentially, because most of those parts are basically one story arc, like 100 chapters or less. It's the same way One Piece has, like, I'm not as interested in, like, is Doflamingo a really good One Piece villain, or is Crocodile a really good One Piece villain? It's like, is One Piece going to have a good final villain to close out the story? I think for that same reason, I'm going to say no to Chainsaw Man. I think it's just a different thing. Because like to me with JoJo's, it's just like the parts system. It's the same as if you just chopped up arcs, right? Like Dragon Ball Z, like you could call Saiyan Saga and Frieza stuff, that's part 1. Cell stuff, that's part 2. Boo, that's part 3, right? Like, but that doesn't mean like that's not the same thing, right? To me, the thing that concludes the story of Dragon Ball is Boo, and I don't think Boo's that good of a final villain. So I think I'm going to be a little bit harsher with this. So with JoJo's, I'm going to give Pucci the final villain role because Pucci concludes that entire the entire narrative of JoJo's, and then Araki restarts it. Yeah. I can include Ozai. Rihanna's thanks for the 5. Throw Code Geass final villains up there if you've seen it. Its villains are beyond everything on your list so far. S+ tier. If not, then no big deal. I haven't finished Code Geass. I stopped after season 1. Silences How's It Not Dio? Because I read the story and I read through part 6, and Dio's not the final villain. Part 7 and 8. So this is a part 7 and 8. We need to let it play out and see. Silence's Dio is like the overarching villain. Yeah, but I would argue like Aizen's the overarching villain of Bleach, but that doesn't change that Yuha Bak is the final villain. And that's what we're trying to decide here, right? Because then you could, like, because the idea of this stream is basically we're all looking ahead to what's One Piece's final villain going to be. So I just want to do a point of comparison. Like, did these other long-running stories that had their final villain, like, where's One Piece going to stack against them, you know? I said 6-7 on accident. All right, continuing on. Okay, so final villains from anime. Here's a quick list, okay? Let's do Pucci, because we're talking about that. What else has reached its conclusion? Vinland, I know, has reached its conclusion, but I didn't uh, I didn't read it. And then there's some anime and manga that you guys haven't really probably followed. Like, do I want to put is it Lucifer from Beelzebub? That's the final villain. Is it Lucifer or I forget what the final fight is of that. Bleach. We got Yuha Bak. We got Boo. We got Fire Force. I get Evangelist slash. What's what? Oh, Evangelist slash. Yeah, this is a weird one. I'll just say Evangelist to avoid spoiling. I guess people know that that's the final villain. Sorry if that was a mouthful. I don't think people care that much for that. Let's see. What else we got? We got Muzan. Do people care about solo leveling spoilers? Tell me right now. Speak now. Do people care about solo leveling spoilers? No Chainsaw Man. We're not putting Chainsaw Man. I'm going to say that right now. Because I'm trying to remove... if anybody sees mentions of Chainsaw Man stuff, then please remove that because we're trying to avoid spoilers for that. Okay, it seems like people... Seems like most people don't care about solo leveling spoilers. If you do care about solo leveling spoilers, all I can say is like... It's not... How do I say this? It's not like a big spoil. It's not like some surprise thing. It's like... It's just a bad guy that's a cool bad guy. Does that make sense? Here, let me do a poll. He's really not like a twist or anything like that. It's just a bad guy that's strong. That's his final opponent. I'm doing a poll. I'm not putting it up. All right. Some people do care. I'll let you guys get your votes in. The simple way I can put it is like I knew this guy was the final boss. Like I had that spoiled sometime in advance. It changes like nothing for the thing. If anything, like it's like okay, cool. We know there's a strong guy to fight later. Yeah, Black Clover. Let me put Black Clover down. What's Black Clover's? What's Black Clover's guy? What's the villain? What's that guy's name? Hold on. Okay. The reason I ask about about solo leveling but not Black Clover for spoilers is because if you're not a Black Clover viewer right now, then if you're not a Black Clover fan right now, you probably don't care about the series. Solo leveling is a series that I know a lot of people care about, or like are invested in. Not like people think that it's the best thing in the world, but it's a series that people are generally invested in, that they like to watch, and that they might not want to, whatever. Whereas Black Clover, either you're reading the manga right now, so you know who the final villain is, or you probably don't care about Black Clover. No, Black Clover, it's different because it is a twist, but my logic is basically with solo leveling, there is a large wave of anime fans who are into solo leveling and who some percent may not want to know a final villain. Black Clover, it's pretty binary. Like, you know how so many of you guys are saying, like, it is a twist, though. Yeah, it's because you're a fucking Black Clover fan, so you're already reading it, right? If you're, like, Black Clover's been around for a long time. Either you've read Black Clover or you haven't read Black Clover, or like you're not planning to read Black Clover. I don't think anybody's fucking like holding out to read Black Clover. Continuing on. Chainsaw Man, no spoilers allowed. Chainsaw Man, no spoilers because there's what do you call there's a significant number of people who are getting into Chainsaw Man right now who were not previously into Chainsaw Man, and we don't want spoilers for them. Black Clover is not in that category. Black Clover's been around for a long time. People either like basically think it sucks or people read it. So if you read it, then then you're probably up to date and know what. Even if you're not up to date, if you're like within the last 50 chapters, you know who the final villain is. Um, Mortia Sinha says, "What if you're anime only for Black Clover? Is anybody here anime only for Black Clover? Is there anybody here who is anime only for Black Clover? I'd be extraordinarily surprised." Yeah, the stream is just going to be hard for no spoilers at all. Okay, continuing on. Um, we've got. I could put Griffith, but like technically we're not there yet. Okay, Fairy Tail. We got Acnologia. All right. We got Father. Or what do we call him? The Homunculus? What's he called? We got Madara. I'm a Kenichi fan. I'm trying to remember the final villain. Maybe that says something that I don't know the final villain. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put solo levelings. I think that's fine. Let me stick to generally popular things. I think that makes things easier. Um, so like we don't want to put things that aren't confirmed, right? Like just because Griffith is like very likely for Berserk or God is very likely for One Punch Man doesn't mean we want to put those. Um, let's see. Trying to pick out popular. Because there's some things that are more niche, but like I'm not gonna put down Gantz and stuff like that. Yeah, I can put down Ozai. Mob Psycho. The final villain is tricky for that because like you could argue the final villain goes down in season 2. Right? Like Mob Psycho is very difficult to rate. Because what even is the final villain of Mob Psycho? It depends on how you view the like. Because you could view season 3 as just like tying up loose ends. Keep it low key, please. Thanks for the 2. Have you seen Neza 1 and 2? Chinese animated movie. I've heard about it and how it broke a bunch of records and stuff like that. Now that I've watched some Chinese animation, I kind of want to check it out just to see. Brandon King says Sensui from Yu Yu Hakusho. So does Sensui count as the final villain? I guess he does. Would we say Sensui's the final villain? Hmm. Sasuke counts? I'm not counting Sasuke. I'm counting Kaguya. We just never got the Yomi as the actual final boss. We never got the actual fight, right? I guess the manga started it, but then we never got to see it. I know the anime showed a lot of it. The anime showed a lot of it, but like, it's not the same. I think that covers a lot of the main ones. Because then outside of that, there's stuff that like it's more niche. It would be things that I'm kind of picking, like Kenichi, Gantz, stuff like Beelzebub, stuff that people don't really know. And to be fair, I barely remember those characters. So like, I guess that says something. I barely remember the final villains of those. I know people are arguing that Sasuke is literally Naruto's final opponent and everything like that. Final opponent and final villain. I guess Sasuke was the final villain. No, it's stupid though, because like people generally just refer to Kaguya. I think we're being. People generally refer to Kaguya as the final villain. You know? They generally refer to Kaguya as the final villain. We'll go with that. Powerful NL, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 30 months, man. Emu equals final boss. Blackbeard equals secret postgame boss. Shanks equals DLC boss. We could get Dami versus Shanks, who knows? Sasuke operates as a second protagonist. That's how I feel too. I just view it as like a different situation. Hezis misses that's where Yu Yu Hakusho drops off hard. It doesn't even like drop off. It just stops. Like drop off is like the quality falls off, but he kind of just like doesn't want to write anymore. But Yomi being defeated was important for the ending. But doesn't Yusuke lose to Yomi? We're gonna keep it at Kaguya. We're gonna keep it at Kaguya. Magi's final villain. Magi's final villain sucked. But the antagonist really mid. Yeah, I don't know. I've seen some cool stuff from Magi that makes it Magi. How do you say it? I don't know how you pronounce it. Yeah, he just straight up quit writing. Like it's not even. So I don't need. I'd like to. I wish I could not count the last arc. But I think the previous arc, like the Sensui arc, is Yu Yu Hakusho's best arc. I think that arc is phenomenal. The one thing I don't like is that the story could have ended with that, but it closes with a lead-in to meeting Ryzen and all of that stuff. And that makes it hard to ignore the arc, you know? Or hard to ignore. So it like you can't just stop reading yourself, you know? Like I can't just stop reading after that arc and pretend the story ended because it's already the ending segues into the next stuff. Keep it low key, please. Thanks for the 10. I think you would like Nezha. Definitely a cool story to watch with your girl. Kind of basic story, but it's like One Piece, Dragon Ball, and Naruto in one. Interesting. I might check it out. Like I've heard only good things. Where would I even watch that? Nezha streaming. Oh, YouTube TV. I actually have YouTube TV to watch the NBA, which I don't even watch. Oh, it's on Netflix? Damn. I didn't even realize that. What about Nezha 2? This one you gotta pay for. I mean, I'll consider it if I like Nezha 1 a lot. Maybe I'll watch that soon. Okay. Let's gather our stuff. Gintama has a peak final villain, but Morge still won't peep. Shake my head. I actually know the final villain. I kind of peaked a little bit. I did actually peep, as you say, because I did actually check out a lot of the final chapters of Gintama. I even read the fight between what's that guy's name? The guy with the guy they call the old guy, the strongest guy. Is his name Umibozu? Yeah, I watched the fight between Umibozu and I read the fight between Umibozu and Gintama's final villain. I did read that. Neza 2 had big One Piece vibes? Interesting. Jude says more. Did you read Akumetsu? No. I think the list as it is right now is here, hold on. Let me screen share for you guys. The list as it is right now, I think is a solid list because it basically covers characters that we're all familiar with. So I think it covers the pop stuff, right? Because then we can go more niche, but it's easier if we cover the pop stuff. One, because I have to do less stuff. I gotta cut out these images now actually while we talk. So one, I gotta do less stuff, and then two, it's stuff that we all mostly know. Because again, there's much more niche series that we could go into, and some aren't even like niche, but then it becomes less fun because then we're not all on the same like I think most people can talk about Majin Buu, for example, right? Most people can talk about a lot of these characters. So like Madara. Oh, why'd I put Madara? It's supposed to be fucking Kaguya. My bad. Kaguya. Yeah. So I think let's keep it simple, and then go from there. Morio Anime says they made Togashi continue. He didn't want to write anymore. Did they make him continue? It seems like they couldn't make him continue. Is My Hero's final villain? I have Shigaraki down. Is it All for One or is it Shigaraki? I changed out Madara for Kaguya. That was my mistake. Brandon King, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 9 months, man. 9 months, great discussions. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate the support. Some Villain Rex. We got Acnoloye in there. Krona from Soul Eater. I haven't read that. Piccolo Jr. from Dragon Ball. And Toriko's final villain. So Dragon Ball, I'm just counting the whole manga. Dragon Ball plus Dragon Ball Z. We could put in Piccolo Jr. if we want to separate that out. I'm down with that. I think it's distinct enough. Because I think that concludes like the full story of Dragon Ball. And then Dragon Ball Z is something very, very different. And then Toriko, final villain. I haven't read Toriko. I view Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z as different as Naruto and Boruto, if not more so. I think they're drastic, like, because you could completely end Dragon Ball where it ends, and it's just like it's a full, complete story. And then it's just like it feels like he just did it again, but yeah. Oh shit. Then are we doing Jiren from Super? Shit, then we have Dragon Ball in here 3 times. So I was actually trying to avoid that sort of thing. Fuck it, it's Dragon Ball. We can put it in Jiren. Yeah, people say really good things about Toriko, but they say the ending's rushed, so I actually don't want to get into it because of that. I feel like we got too many Dragon Ball in there. Dragon Ball and Z are closer to each other than the JoJo parts are? No, JoJo parts feel all remarkably similar. Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z feel like 2 totally different stories. I'm gonna take off Jiren. I don't feel like doing this. Okay. Maybe I should take off Piccolo Jr. Because then we're gonna get too many complaints from the JoJo stuff. Bismuth says there wasn't even a week break between Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. It's just an anime distinction to be continued on seamlessly in the same manga. No, there was a message, because I read the original Dragon Ball. There's a message at the end of that, like, yeah, we concluded this, we're going to start something new. So there's not an official distinction, but the series are so remarkably different. But you know what? We can take off Piccolo Jr. I'm fine with that. I personally think it concludes well with Piccolo, like the fight against King Piccolo. Piccolo Jr. is not a good final villain for Dragon Ball. Computer Visa says you can't say that Frieza versus Goku was that much different than Piccolo Jr. versus Goku. It is so different, in fact, that they're literally on a different planet. They're literally on the other side of the universe. And Goku is now fighting an alien god while he transforms himself into an alien god. It's literally, it is so remarkably. That'd be like saying, like, imagine like One Piece concludes, but then the very next arc of One Piece is like Luffy on some other planet, and we find out that Luffy is an alien, and Luffy is now fighting some alien god that has nothing to do with One Piece, the Four Blues, the Grand Line, the One Piece itself, all of the stuff that they fucking did for so long. It's just, it can't be more different. With JoJo's, it's just like, we fought Dio, and now we're fighting Dio's disciple, and there's more stand users, and now we're in this little town, and there's some stand users, but now we're in Italy, and there's some stand users. So remarkably different, and there's weird dressed characters here too. It's just the same shit. Wheezy Bird says the tone is not that different, which is what he's saying. We're not talking about tone differences, though. Oh, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, Baccarat. Shoot, then who's the final villains of... I don't remember GX's final villain. Amartya Sinha says, damn, when you put it in that context, Dragon Ball is kind of insane. So many jumping the shark moments that work perfectly somehow, lol. It's because it was a different time. So, like, jumping the shark, like... It's kind of just like you could do whatever, you know? And I think people even recognize like Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z feel like two drastically different stories. So it's just like, we're doing something new here, you know? I think the thing that helped is that Dragon Ball Z... obviously initially it was just a manga, right? So like there's no distinction there. But I think the thing that helped is that the second part, right? The second part, what it became even more popular than what it was initially. And it's really the sequel. It's really once the whole context was reinvented to be all about these power-ups and everything like that, and fighting and destroying the universe and destroying planets and stuff. I think that's where most of shonen influence comes from. Not that it didn't also stem from the original story and everything, but I think people are cool with it because it jumped the shark in a way that, like, people liked how insane it got afterwards. You know? That's what actually stands out. Jordan Vance says, if Dragon Ball did that in today's media, it wouldn't be as praised. Yeah, I mean, in general, if Dragon Ball came out in today's day, it wouldn't be as praised because it's just different. Yeah, going from Journey to the West Kung Fu vibes to science fiction is a crazy jump. All right. Let me actually snip these images real quick. Let me snip these images. Okay, here's our final list, so you guys can take a quick look while I'm going to be snipping the images for them. Here we go. So we got, we got a few. Yeah. Let me just cut these things out. Cut these guys out. All right. I guess I'll just do faces. That's easiest. All right. Give me 1 second here. Give me 1 second. You know what? Let me not bore you. Let me answer you guys' questions at the same time. Henchme976, thanks for the 2. Do Bakuman. The final villains are VA idol weebs. I've heard Bakuman's good, but I need action in my anime and manga stuff when I'm watching. I just need action. I need some action. I need characters to fight. It's just the way I am. It's unfortunate. I don't need that for other media. It's really just anime. For anime, for whatever reason, I just need that. It's just the way I am. I'm a meathead specifically for anime. Yeah, this is a good photo of him. But I still want good writing, so it's conflicting. You know what it is? It's because like I used to just like I've explained this before. I used to love reading fantasy books, and that was like my favorite type of thing to read. That was like, an important pastime for me. I was a huge reader growing up. Um, but once I started reading anime or reading manga and watching anime, that did kind of die out for me. It just did. Which is a shame. I do want to get back into reading. I always say I want to get back into reading, and then I kind of don't. And maybe one day that'll change, though. Perhaps one day. All right. Yeah. Yeah, this is going well. All right. I feel like Fire Force people won't know what this is. But you know what? It's okay. It's okay. That's okay. The Evangelist looks really cool in Fire Force, but as a villain, I just don't know. As a villain, it's maybe not the best. Don't worry, guys. I'm flying through this. I'll be done in 2 minutes. I also feel like looking at this list at first glance, there's very few that I think are like great final villains. They kind of fall into two categories, right? They fall into the categories of either characters that make one crazy exception for Night King. Add Light Yagami? Nah. Does Nier count? No. Nah, we're not going to get into those. Morge's attention span is too fried now to be able to get back into reading. I read something recently. What the fuck did I read? Oh, I tried reading like a couple light novels actually, and I just didn't really enjoy those. I didn't think the writing was that good. So that's, I guess, for a different reason. Here we go. Wait, did I save this? We're almost there. All right. What's the final solo leveling? Don't worry about it. Gilgamesh. So Gilgamesh is an interesting option. I did actually consider adding that, but I think it falls into the category of how I view like parts and stuff, and like I just view Fate as too short of a one. He's not officially the like. There's multiple options for like the Fate final villains, you know. Although, as far as I know, he's the final villain in like 2 of the options. What about Johan? I haven't read Monster. I've only watched like 1 episode of Monster. I might try Monster at some point. What about the final villain of Cory in the House? No, that'd be unfair because then we'd have to make like an S plus tier, and then that just like ruins the visual look of the whole thing. I have so many thoughts about so many of these villains as I'm seeing them, but I'm gonna save them for because like right now I'm looking for a good picture of Acnologia, and like man, I did not like this dude. He was obviously strong. The Grail is the final villain pretty consistently in all hit. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. You know, there's like a Fate series, like Fate Strange Fate, that's supposed to be out right now, but like it's taking forever in production. Because I kind of want to see that, but they just haven't put it out yet. They're taking forever. Let's see. We got Father. Yeah. What's a good photo of Father? I guess this is a good photo of Father. Acnologia is too good for Fairy Tail. I did not like Acnologia. I mean, he was a good threat, but I don't think it's complicated because like there's a lot of things that I want from a good villain. Like, what's my perfect? I think I personally love villains. Like for me, my favorite anime manga villain is probably some common. It's either like it's probably Griffith. I think Griffith is my favorite. If not Griffith, then the Chainsaw Man Part 1 final villain, but we kind of agreed not to count that person. Then there's also I feel like Hunter x Hunter has a phenomenal villain for the Chimera Ant arc, but I feel like the concept of villain gets flipped around. Otherwise, that would be my favorite. Um, I think for me, for the standards of a general shonen, right? The standards of a general shonen series, right? For me, everything that I want, like I think the coolest villain to me is still Aizen. Like if you're ignoring like how deep do they have to be, yada yada. For me, Aizen epitomizes what I want a villain to feel like. Extremely great. Okay, everything is really strong with Aizen, right? The sense of threat, the like the sense that like he has everything masterminded, but he's also pretty much impossible to defeat in combat. The sense that he's always one step ahead, but then also extremely charismatic, very quotable, great design, the persona, the personality, the aura, etc. I feel like Aizen was like the aura guy before aura kind of really became like a term. To me, that's just like the quintessential sort of anime villain. That's great. For some reason, that wasn't the final villain of Bleach. I get why we have the final villain that we do. I don't even think Yuhabak is like a bad final villain. I just think that ultimately Aizen's the better villain that most of the story was built around. I feel like there could have been a way to incorporate him being the final villain still, you know? Like, or like, to me, there's a way that you could have written the story to conclude with Aizen's storyline, because that's what the entire plot basically built around. That's just me, though. That's just me. I don't think Yuhabak is bad either. It's just, he's not the GOAT. Wait, for My Hero, who is the final villain? Who's the final villain? Henchme976 says Aizen went out in a lame fizzle, though. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. I guess Aizen's my, like, not my favorite, but he is my image of, like, what a villain should be all the way up to his end. All the way up to his end. Thanos from the MCU? Yeah. Yeah, amazing villain. Like, and for very similar reasons. What if the final villain is Vin Smoke Romeus, as I'm saying? Then no one would stand a chance. Then they'd be done. So I don't think we could actually do it. Also, make sure to get your submissions in for the Pirate King podcast as soon as you can. Wait, it's 9:57 here? What the fuck? Oh my god, time just flew. Oh my god, I've been streaming for a while. Okay, it's all for one. I see. Okay, my bad. All for one. I see. Oh man, that's kind of a big spoiler then, because, I mean, I don't really mind. But that makes sense, because I know that Deku's goal was to save Shigaraki and stuff, so I guess he gets to do that. Oh, fuck. Hold on. Huh. Okay. All for One is Kaguya but good. Yeah, I mean, I liked All for One as a villain when All Might fought him. I thought he was a good villain then. That's still one of my favorite anime scenes. I just assumed that Shigaraki replaces him. Okay, then last we got Sukuna, Ozai, and Bakura. All right, Sukuna. Sukuna, Ozai, and Bakura. Who's the final villain of Korra? I think we needed more time with Ozai. I just have so many thoughts on so many of these characters. I really think we needed a lot more time with Ozai. Because, like, Azula is such a phenomenal villain in Avatar. And then Ozai just shows up at the very end and is like, I'm strong. Fight me. that's like Avatar is really really good for like a lot of things, but that's like a random miss in my opinion. And the fight is still phenomenal, phenomenal fight. It's the best fight in the series, or at least in it's a great fight. And all right. Let me create a tier list here. Make a template. All right. The fuck? It wants me to turn off my ad block. That's irritating. You know what? I'm not going to do that, though. We're going to do this without doing that. I just don't think things have the right to request that of me. Because I'm sure the creators of this site use ad block, you know? All right. Here we go. What the fuck? Okay, there we go. There we go. Oh my god, this is going to be a short tier list. That's okay, though. That's okay, because we've already streamed pretty long time. It's already gone fairly long. All right. Wait, what the fuck? What is happening? Oh, okay, there we go. All right, let me show you guys what I made. It's not the most complicated tier list in the world. It's pretty straightforward. All right, it's pretty much only got a few things. All right. Kuvira. Ozai is a boss fight, nothing more, nothing less. Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with that at the end of the day. Let's get stream likes up to 100 real quick, because then we'll be good to start the tier list. Agni Kai is the best fight, though. Yeah. I think the decision to split the fights between like Zuko Azula and Aang Ozai was great. I think that was great. I feel like Sokka and Toph in their group could have done more. Sokka and Toph, and then Naraku was Muzan before Muzan. Who's Naraku? Oh, Naraku. What? Oh, Utsuru. I remember the name Utsuru. Yeah, I remember the name Utsuru. Where's JoJo villains? We got Poochie. 2010 YouTube list. All right, here we go. Final villain tier list. What is kind of... So I think Boo's like a C. Just because I don't dislike... I don't think Boo's bad. I just think that compared to Frieza and Cell... Keep in mind, by the way, this isn't even like... This is... when I was a kid, Boo was my favorite. But that was just because when I was a kid, I just liked whichever villain was stronger than the previous villain. I was very simple. So when I found out that Cell was a thing and Cell was stronger than Frieza, I was just like, okay, well, Cell's my favorite villain now. And then later on, when I found out that Boo is even stronger, I was like, okay, well, Boo's my favorite now. So when I was a kid, like, if anything, my nostalgia biases me towards Boo, but now that I've had space and once I went and reread the whole Dragon Ball manga, I'm kind of like, I just don't think it's as strong. Yeah, Boo had aura, but not much depth. I preferred the storytelling that went into Frieza and Cell. I feel like with Boo, Toriyama kind of distilled the simplest aspect of Dragon Ball, which is basically like, well, ultimately all that really needs to happen is I need a strong character that I just need my heroes to have a strong character that they can fight, and I need everybody to kind of get a shot. That's basically like Dragon Ball Z distilled, right? The thing is that the previous iterations of this, like Frieza, Cell, right? Frieza, Cell, the androids, right? There was more effort that went into like the plot and story around all the reasons for this, but then I think Toriyama had basically at some point just realized that like well, all I just need is like a thing, literally a thing for that goes around causing trouble and they all have to fight it, right? So it was kind of like the least effort it felt like into putting the story around it. So Boo feels kind of like a distillation of like, well, if you just strip away what Frieza is, what Cell is, it's like, well, what are they really? It's just like, it's a object for heroes to fight and use power-ups on and like take turns fighting against, right? So this is like this distilled, and then you just have it run wild, you know? Fat Boo did have depth. That's true. I liked Fat Boo and Hercule's storyline a lot. Yeah, but Brainless Menace, that's basically what it came down to. It's just like, tear off all the character and everything. It's just like, well, just have this thing go crazy and go wild, right? Yuha Bak, I think, actually with Thousand Year Blood War now, I want to put, let's put him as, I might put him at an S. And like, keep in mind, this was after me saying like a lot about like how I prefer Aizen, but that doesn't make him not an S tier villain. I think I think I really disliked him when the Thousand Year Blood War arc was coming out. I disliked everything about Thousand Year Blood War when it was coming out. Starting with this dude's fucking design, lame as fuck design in my mind when it first came out. I was like, he doesn't look cool. Like, Aizen looked cool. Aizen looked amazing. I was like, this guy's just a fucking homeless dude. He literally is just like some homeless design. It's just some homeless guy walking around. I was like, why is this a guy? Like, what is the deal with it? He just looks like this vagrant. I thought he had no aura. I thought it was lame that the first fight that he had, he cheated against Yamamoto. And then I didn't understand his ability earlier. Or I did understand his ability, but I thought his ability was silly. It was just like, it's the Almighty, and it just works like whatever. I just thought Bleach was so dumb at that point because it started doing lots of really, really dumb things. So like Yuha Bak became kind of like the symbol for that. Now that we've run it back with the anime for Thousand Year Blood War, right? Now that we've run it back for the anime, this guy's awesome. Tremendous presence. The power is absurd, right? Very, very intimidating. There's a lot of his journey to climb back up to try and take down the Soul King is actually somewhat interesting in itself. Like, you kind of feel for him a little bit. But yeah. Prophet Glutton says everyone cheats against Yamamoto, only way to win. That was what I thought was stupid, though, because it's not even true. For him, like, how do I say this? It's not even true in that he can just win if he has the Almighty. But Kubo wrote him as not having the Almighty for that matchup for some reason. I just find it very underwhelming. It's like the first fight that he does, it's like one that's him cheating. I'm like, that's really dumb. Because like, you want to use the first fight to establish how strong the villain is. What better way than defeating Yamamoto, who has been our bar for strength for so long? And then it's like, okay, well, I can't do it. It's like, okay, that's not a good way to make this villain feel that strong and intimidating. But then later on you go and it's like, well, actually now I've awakened this power that is strong enough to defeat Yamamoto. So it's like, well, then why didn't Kubo just write him already having that power in the first place? It's fucking stupid. Yeah, you really feel like he's a king in the anime. Yeah, the anime gives him a sense of a very regal vibe, and like, yeah, he still looks homeless, but the anime is able to like kind of just through scene direction and stuff give him some weight. Andrew Anami says Jingling Keys really have more thinking Yuha Bak is an S tier LMAO. So in all fairness, I think it's because I gave it a quick skim. So I was just gonna put him in A, but I gave it a quick skim. I think it's slim pickings. I don't think any of these characters are that good. Tenryu Naito says Yuha Bak has aura, drip, menace, dynamics with other major characters, great abilities, actually deals immense damage, and thematic depth. What else do you need from him? I think, yeah, I don't think he has drip. This might just be me, but I think he looks lame still. Looks cooler a little bit with like the anime giving him vibes and stuff, but yeah, I don't need that much more from him. I think he is a strong final villain. I definitely think he's a strong final villain. Like, the way he goes out is bad, but we obviously know that's getting a rewrite. Um, like if I want a villain that in my mind is like something that like goes above and beyond, that's like Griffith. Griffith would obviously be on another tier than Yuhabak. Same with Eisen. Eisen would be Eisen would definitely be on another tier than Yuhabak. I think Eisen is a different caliber of like iconic villain and like the effect that he had. Like Eisen he's literally like a verb in the anime community, you know? Not a verb, but it's like this is the Eisen of that, or this is the like Eisen is something else. But Yuhabak is really good still. Ender says that doesn't mean we're forced to put characters in S tier, lol. I feel like we have to, because then otherwise S tier is nothing, right? So it's all relative, you know? B. Muhammad Tariq Humaid says, what do you think the tier of manga only Yuhabak is? Like a B or a C? I'd say maybe a B. I would have to go reread Thousand Year Blood War in the manga, but I don't hate myself, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to force myself to go through that. If he had Zangetsu's design, he would be better. Yeah, maybe if they traded designs. Anyway. And UX7 says, more, did you see the Metal Gear video I recommended you from last time? If so, what did you think? I thought that it's actually really interesting. I thought it was interesting. I did watch it. I thought it was very interesting how it did call out a lot of things that you see that are very prevalent today, especially with social media. So I thought it was a very prophetic type of sort of like articulation from like a video game from like decades ago. So I thought that was cool. But I guess that's something that's always been there in society. It's just even more prevalent now. So I did like that video. I'm happy I did not watch that whole thing on stream, because then that becomes very long. But I did like that video. HB976 says an empty tier would emphasize the lack of quality, lol. We could do that. Okay, let's just keep going and then we see. Vicious from Cowboy Bebop. Ooh, that's actually, I forgot about that. Yeah, let's put in Vicious. Here, we can put in Vicious. Here we go. All right. Let me try and get more of the face. All right. Good call. I can't believe I forgot about that. All right. Okay. Can't add more. Choose files. There we go. Is he in? Oh, yeah, he's in. All right, continuing on. Muzan. I know a lot of people haven't finished out Demon Slayer, but I'd give Muzan like a B. I think he's like... I just don't think I don't think... Jolly D Joestar, we're trying not to spoil people, that's all. I think the problem with Muzan is just that, like, I guess the author was trying to go for, like, an understated design for the big bad final villain. But to me, it doesn't work, because Demon Slayer has so many phenomenal villain designs that it's just like, I don't know. We're kind of just told that Muzan is, like, really, like, you know, I don't know. I think going too understated with the design doesn't work here. I think because all of the other designs are so good. Muzan's a C. Yeah, actually, I might agree. I actually might put Muzan worse than Kid Buu, because I actually like Kid Buu. Poochie, I'm going to put as a... I'm putting Poochie as... I strongly dislike Poochie as a final villain. I thought there's a huge gap between, like, what he... Hold on. Yeah, we might actually not have an S. I feel like there's a huge gap between Poochie's, like, goals and then his means to get there. I think Poochie kind of sucks, especially compared. I think he is the worst of the JoJo villains from the original universe, except for maybe Diablo. Poochie over Boo? No. I strongly dislike Poochie. He just never felt like a final villain type thing for me. He always feels like a subordinate, and he kind of makes it clear he's got a subordinate mentality. And he's got this goal. I don't think the goal is ever like you get the backstory and stuff, so you're like, okay, I get why he wants certain, like why his goal is to create heaven or whatever, but then there's very little logic as to why him doing the whole time loop thing is his logic. Like, he's like, this is what creates heaven. Like, there's just such a big disconnect. He's just such a scattered villain to me. And it doesn't help that the entire time he makes clear that he's a subordinate. He's just some follower of Dio. But then by the end, he's like, he's the final villain, and he's like way more powerful. I just think Poochie's kind of terrible. I was always curious why you said you dislike Poochie in your JoJo's video. I just think that for any, like, especially considering he's the final villain of the entire JoJo's original universe, above Dio, Cars, Diablo, Kira, etc., it's kind of absurd that he's just like, just some follower dude the entire time. And there's just no logic to his actions at the end of the day. The backstory gives some logic to his goal, but the means to, like, but what he considers to be achieving that goal just makes no sense. I don't know. I think Poochie kind of sucks. The Evangelist, I think, is lame too. I consider Fire Force to have like the vaguest final villain concept ever. You don't even know what. I'm gonna put the Evangelist here. Okay, this guy's a B so far. He's a B so far just because one thing that will never stop infuriating me about Black Clover, he had the plan. He's very powerful. Everything kind of came together. I think he's good. I think the thing that's frustrating me about him is just like, I don't think there's anything that unique feeling about him. I think. He's like a watered down kind of version of Aizen, I would say. And then on top of that, the thing that'll always frustrate me about Black Clover that never makes any fucking sense in this show, is how characters are like always mocking Asta's like anti-magic power. And it's like, this is the most broken shit ever. This literally counters everything you guys can do. It's like his power, it would be the equivalent of if you're in One Piece and a character's power is essentially like Sea Stone or something like that. Like, that's what their ability is. And they only fight Devil Fruit users in a world with only Devil Fruit users, not even any individual hockey users. Or it's like in 2B Hero X, there's like a fucking subplot of how there's like alien technology being introduced that counters the fundamental power system of the world. And everyone's like, oh, that's broken as fuck. In Black Clover, it's the weirdest thing because the author keeps trying to gaslight us into feeling like Asta's power isn't the most powerful ability in the universe. And it's just like, by continuously having villains talk down to him and be like, you just have the ability that trumps all of our abilities. What a weakling. It's like, what the fuck? And you could argue that, like, well, Asta doesn't, like, he has some limits. Like, at first he just has a sword that he can swing around to use it. But then later on he has, like, different swords that shoot beams and do, like, and suck up magic. And he can fly and turn into a demon and fly around. Like, he has no weaknesses anymore. So it's just really weird that villains keep trying to convince us that his power isn't inherently the most powerful ability in the universe. So that's one thing I don't like about this guy, is that still this deep in the story, I haven't read the last 3 chapters, but I remember before that, he was like, he's talking so much shit, but he doesn't actually have a plan to deal with Asta and Yuno and stuff. It doesn't happen. It's really weird. Yeah, someone mocking Blackbeard's black hole move. It's crazy. Yeah. It's just really bizarre. Um, That's the only person who can use hockey in a world of devil fruit users. The thing is that it's not even like it's hockey. Because like hockey, at least hockey doesn't automatically defeat devil fruits. Like it's just a way to fight back, right? Asta automatically defeats every devil fruit user essentially. Like it's more like Sea Stone, is what it is. I think Father is a good final villain. I'd put him in this category. I don't think there's anything great. I might put him here. I think he's good. I think he's pretty good. I don't think he's great. Acnologia I always thought was fucking worse than Zeref. I thought Zeref was a really good choice for final villain. Okay, let me see. What does this tier represent? To me, this tier actually represents villains that aren't bad. They're just not... Like, this tier represents villains that aren't bad. They're just simple. Like, I might put Sukuna here. Then I think this tier represents villains that got a bit more... Like, something actually, like I like them as final villains. And then... No. I think this is the tier that I like them as final villains, even if I don't think they're great. I'm putting Antares here too. I think Antares is a good final villain for what solo leveling is. This tier, it's like I can kind of work with them. No, this should be higher. Sukuna should be higher. Sukuna should be... I think Sukuna's just really hollow. It's not like Antares isn't hollow, but Antares works for solo leveling, so it's in the context of the series. It's kind of like Kid Buu works in the context of Dragon Ball to some degree. I think this guy... I don't know. Oh, fuck. I fucking forgot Kaguya. Kaguya was the whole reason we did this list. Not the whole reason, but it's like a big part. Alright. Let me get Kaguya. Here we go. Okay, let's say these are good final villains. Good. Sukuna maybe is a... I guess with Sukuna it's tricky because like part of it is expectation. So with Sukuna I wanted more, not more fights and more fighting, but I think I just wanted more substance for the character. Yeah, Kaguya is really bad. I could put Kid Buu in B. Because Kaguya goes here. Vicious is obviously good. Ozai is fine. I think Ozai goes here. I think this is like solid. Let's put solid, then I'll put Kid Buu here. So this is fine. I think Acnologia actually kind of sucks. Say bad. And then I think Bakura is fine. I think Marek is a better villain than Bakura for sure. I like this. And then All for One, I don't know. Vicious should be the only S tier. I don't think there's that much going for Vicious. I think Cowboy Bebop's really good, but I just don't think Vicious has that much writing to him. At least not that I remember. What's All for One? I guess I'll give him the option of S, A, B, C. Yeah, I think Acnologia kind of sucks. It's just dragon that they need to fight. There's no sort of story to it. Kid Buu at least like emerges through a lot of storytelling or whatever. Yeah, I think Muzan's fine. I think Poochie's fine. I think those are all fine villains. And then I feel like Ozai falls under fine as well. Ozai's fine. The fight he gives is really good. What's there to like about Antares? Antares is good for the series, for the purpose he needs to serve, for the series itself. It's in context. All for One to A? All right, let's do it. We're calling this A tier. Hold on, I forgot. This is, yeah, it just makes sense. All for One's pretty good, right? Tiptia says, yeah, because you're a solo leveling show. That's also probably true. But, like, that's, as somebody who's a fan of that series, I think a lot of it comes down to, like, how do the readers of the series feel about that character? To some degree. Nah, I'm also putting a lot of my own personal things. That's a lie. All right. So if we're looking at like here, I can drop Antares. I can drop Antares because I'm probably being overly biased towards that. If we're looking at Emu as the final villain, I feel like Emu would already be somewhere around here, either the solid or the good category. I think Blackbeard can easily be better than all of these characters. Easily be better than all these characters. So I think Blackbeard is the more promising option. I feel like there's a ceiling to how good Emu can be, just because I think there's a bit of a lack of depth to the character. And so a lot of it would be riding on... Like, I can't imagine Emu being an S tier character right now. Blackbeard could easily be an S tier. But Emu could easily be, like, just through being a very powerful, controlling villain that's, you know, very oppressive, great presence, great abilities, great impact, threat, battle, all of that. Emu could be in this category. Taptio says Blackbeard is going to be S tier. Yeah, but as a final villain. So, like, if Blackbeard's the final villain of the story, I think that's an S tier final villain. I think that's a better final villain than Bleach or Naruto get for sure. Better final villain than most series get. All right, everybody. We are probably going to call it here. I don't know how I feel about those rankings. But we are probably going to call it here. I think I might need to rethink that later. But yeah, this was a fun stream. Thank you all for tuning in. And yeah, with that, I will talk to you all later.